Hello, my name is Chet Donnelly. I'm a spine surgeon here in my hometown of Dallas, Texas. I treat everything from the skull down to the pelvis, and today I'm going to talk to you about a very difficult condition to both diagnose and to treat. This is Bertolotti Syndrome, and Bertolotti Syndrome is a tough condition mainly because of the diagnostic issues. It's something where primary care doctors might miss it, patients might miss it, and spine surgeons might miss it. It's an overgrowth of a certain bone, and it mimics many other spine conditions. So in the next several minutes, I'm going to talk to you about what it is, how we diagnose it, and what are some of the treatment options, both non-surgical as well as surgical. Is it a resection, just taking the bone out, or is it a fusion? And what type of fusion is that, and what's the recovery from that? Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy, and let's get to it. So in terms of this condition, it's actually quite prevalent. It might be in around 4 to 8% of the population. And essentially what it is, it's an overgrowth of a bone coming off of the lumbar 5, so the lowest body, vertebral body in the spine, and you have this overgrowth of this bone, and it starts to articulate or interact with the pelvis, and this could create pain. So some people say, why is this bothering me now? And I tell them the simple expression, look, you're born with it, but it doesn't always hurt until it does. This is a classic x-ray of a patient looking straight on at their pelvis of what someone might see. And there's different types. In general, if there's an overgrowth of this bone, this is what you're going to see. And this overgrowth of the bone is what's going to lead to the pain. So here's how we diagnose it. It's an x-ray, an AP view. And if we have these little wings that come off of each of the bones, so if this is lumbar 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's pretty much inherently has to be off of the lumbar 5 bone. And these little wings that come off are totally normal. They're called the transverse process, and they're totally normal. And this is a normal looking one on this side. And on this side, this overgrowth, and again, it's congenital, you're born with it, is something that definitely could be a source of the back pain. So how do we diagnose it? Look, the first way is straight on x-ray, and that's a good way to look at it. Then you can get a CT scan. You don't need to do this on every person. A CT scan is a fair amount of radiation, but this would be the classic finding. And you can even see, to the untrained eye, you'd be like, ooh, that looks angry, that looks mad. These are the two bones rubbing on each other. I can't tell looking at this if it's left or right. It's, they have to have the key on there, but this would show you that's definitely a source of the back pain for sure. There's different types, type 1, type 2, type 3, and type 4. The majority of the ones we're going to be talking about is type 2. Those are the very symptomatic ones. Now, each of these can be symptomatic to different degrees, but the things that really stand out to them, we don't need to go over all the different types necessarily and classification of type A, type 1A, type 2B, all those things. But essentially, it's if there is a pseudo-articulation or if it's completely fused, if the bone completely fused to itself, and that's different ways to treat those things. So how does this present? Chronic back pain is the common presenting symptom. That's usually when you become more into the adulthood. But there's other areas of pain that might mimic it. In fact, I just want to be clear, you might have this radiographic feature of the overgrowth of the transverse process, but it might not be the source of your pain. It might not be causing any of your issues. In fact, if you're having shooting down leg pain, it's unlikely to be from this because usually the shooting down leg pain is from a pinched nerve. The pinched nerves in general are from disc herniations, something called spondylolisthesis where the bones are moving back and forth on each other, joint arthritis. If you have this condition, very likely you don't have joint arthritis because all the arthritis is going through that area. And again, there's different types. And it wouldn't be the joint arthritis at lumbar 5 sacral 1 causing it. You could have an issue at the level above, unrelated to this. So how do we treat this condition? Well, as mentioned before, the first thing we got to do is diagnose it. And clinically diagnosing it is listening to the patient, looking at x-rays, possibly a CT, possibly an MRI, possibly a bone scan. These are all different ways the spine surgeon could go about diagnosing it. The first line treatment is the conservative care. This is the medical management, anti-inflammatories, a dedicated physical therapy program, and in many patients, it's going to treat this. Additionally, if there's another source of your pain, this first line treatment is going to be identifying that source, whether we know exactly what it is. Maybe it's joint arthritis at higher up in the spine, maybe it's a torn muscle or stressed back, or it's just degenerative disc disease. This first-line treatment will help with that anyway. The second-line treatment is a little more invasive. This is when we start to talk about getting our pain colleagues, the interventionalist, to put a needle there and do an injection. And look, this is a type of steroid injection that is helpful really from a diagnostic standpoint. If we can put a needle into that fake joint or that pseudo articulation, to use a big fancy medical word, and you get relief, a couple hours, a couple days even, then that's great from a diagnostic standpoint. That lets me know, hey, you have this radiographic feature and it's causing you that degree of pain. How do I know that? We were able to get rid of that degree of pain. Look, if it got rid of 50% of your pain, maybe there's another source of that 50%. If it got rid of all of your pain, maybe that is causing all of your symptoms. And that's the tough part, is diagnosing the issue, just to keep emphasizing that. So what's next? So say you get relief from that. Well, there's some good studies in the pain journals. If you go to pubmed.gov, you can see some of these for yourself also. They talk about doing an RFA, or a radiofrequency ablation. That's pretty much putting this probe there and burning this sensory nerve there. And that's kind of the whole rationale. If you find that pseudo articulation, you can burn that area, you being this pain management doctor. And that's a good, very minimally invasive way, non-surgical way to kind of try to calm down that area. And does that give you forever relief? Maybe, maybe not. Some studies show that maybe at best to give 16 months, which isn't nothing, but at least maybe it helps confirm that that's the source of your pain. So what is the treatment? And there's truthfully not amazing studies looking at this. And how do I define amazing study? Well, the journal it's published in is part of it. It's called the impact factor. Look, there's probably 200 different journals that publish spine material. So just because it's published doesn't mean it's the gold standard in terms of what spine surgeons or patients should or should not do. This is a journal I like. This study was in September 2022, and they looked at the operative treatment, resection, meaning shaving that off, or doing a fusion at that lumbar 5 sacral 1. Now let's take a step back. People understandably are going to hear that and be like, I don't want a fusion. Why would you fuse that if you could just resect it? In general, a fusion might be a great option because it's already trying to fuse. You likely have almost no range of motion from that area anyway, and so completing that fusion could be a potential source of treatment. Well, you could also argue, what if you just cut off that piece of bone? You get rid of that joint. Would that fix your issue? Potentially, and that's what we're going to discuss today. And for those at home listening, being like, cutting it off sounds way easier, it's not necessarily easier. And just because something is harder doesn't mean you should do it or shouldn't do it. That's what we're going to go over. So this was a great study. It reviewed 27 patients, and they split them into two groups, the resection and a fusion, and they wanted to look at their outcomes. So what they saw is, in the short term, patients did well this first 6 months, regardless of which treatment you had. So initially, 2 thumbs up, people were happy. Now, people were happier in the fusion group compared to the resection group, but in terms of how we look at statistical significance, it didn't reach statistical significance. So you'll see that the percentage is different, 100 versus 78, but statistically, in terms of law of big numbers, they're both very happy. So what about long term? Because you might be thinking 6 months, who cares about that? I'm trying to get better forever, right? Good point. They found that long term in these two groups, and they were perfectly matched, but it wasn't the highest powered study in the world. They found that the fusion group had better long term at 1 year compared to the resection group. Well, here's a follow-up study. This was in World Neurosurgery, July 2023, so somewhat recent. And they said, how about this? There's different types of these anomalies, this Bertolotti syndrome. What if we look at the different types to see who does better with what? And what they decided is they're going to look at the type 1s. That's where you don't totally have that fake joint. They said let's do a resection of those. And the type 2s, that's where you do have the pseudo articulation. How about we see about resecting them or fusing them? And the type 3, that's when they've kind of auto-fused, it's one solid bone. They agreed with which most spine surgeons agree, it's a solid area. You should not be having pain as a generator there because those bones, your L5 and S1, are essentially already fused. So it's not a motion segment. And they had 65 patients. What they found during this study is the type 1 patients did pretty well with doing the resection. 7% needed a subsequent surgery, but in general, about 85% of them had some improvement. In the type 2, they did resection in some of them, but they noticed that about half of them did not do well, and they stopped it. they found that those that had fusion in this type 2 actually did pretty darn good, almost 90%. So based on this, they decided that in general, varies surgeon to surgeon, varies patient to patient, but maybe a treatment strategy and a treatment option on future studies we should look at is the type 1s, maybe favor resection, which is not as easy as it sounds. The type 2, we favor fusion. But then what is fusion? There's different ways to do the fusion, and that's what I'm going to go over also. So in terms of resection, I just keep stressing this. It's not necessarily as easy as it sounds. I use this ultrasonic bone scalpel that I use all the times for laminectomies, microdiscectomies, laminoplasties, a bunch of big fancy words, that essentially it's like a knife and it melts away the bone using ultrasonic tools. It uses this crystalloid that kind of vibrates at a high modulus elasticity. Kind of getting a little scientific here, but essentially it could kind of cut through the bone and you can remove it that way. Well, that all sounds fine and dandy, but you know, it's pretty deep. If you have a writing utensil, in terms of how deep that is under the spine, you know, everyone's different. If you're a really large patient, that's going to be bigger. If you're a super skinny patient, but in general, I'd say most patients, you know, it's pretty thick. You got to go through a lot of tissue. You got to cut a lot of muscle. It's bloody. It's a little tough to see down there. It's not the most minimally invasive surgery you've ever heard of or I've ever done, just to cut off a piece of bone. Also, it's a little hairy down there. And what do I mean by that? I don't mean like hair on your head or hair under your armpit. I mean, you know, you're going from the back to the front, and kind of right in front of that bone are some pretty important named blood vessels, such as the common iliac artery, common iliac vein. Now, normally they're maybe a little more midline or a little lower, but you know, God made us all a little different. There's a little different anatomy in all of us. So it's not the absolute safest surgery in the world, even though it sounds cute to maybe someone at home saying, hey, just cut out that little piece of bone and call it a day. Not always the case. So what's the fusion option? Again, many people at home say, oh, I have a neighbor who knows someone at church that had a fusion and they did horrible. Well, look, there's about 1,000 different ways to do fusions. I have a lot of videos on this. Are you going through the front? Is it a 5-level fusion, a 1-level fusion, a non-instrumented fusion, a minimally invasive fusion? There's just a robotic fusion. You know, there's so many different fusions out there that really bums me out when someone says, oh, I've heard about fusions being bad. It's like, I don't know about that. It's like saying I hear about car shops being bad. There's so many different car shops, so many different issues. In general, there's kind of 2 ways to do this type of surgery. You could do something called a stand-alone ALIF, a small incision. I'd say it's all about the anterior axis surgeon you're using. Not to toot my own horn, but in the Dallas area, the axis surgeons I use, particularly one of them is probably the highest volume in the entire nation. Maybe does 4 or 5 of them a day, and that's just a lot of reproducibility. So making that small incision, probably the small size of a credit card, pushing the stomach contents to the side. They're actually kind of in a bag, like a football, and you just push the guts to the side, for lack of better words. Then an L5-S1, the blood vessel split like a goalpost. A lot of football terms here, kind of deep in the south of Dallas, Texas. And you clean out that remaining disc space there. And usually it's already some degenerative disc space there, and you can do a fusion there. That is definitely one treatment option for this condition. Another treatment option for this condition is a minimally invasive posterior spinal instrumented fusion. And this is kind of what it looked like. This is a patient of mine. You can see I have these 2 stab incisions on the back. I use something called navigation. Sometimes I use a robot. Sometimes I use this thing called augmented reality, where I put on this big headset like fighter pilots use. A little beside the point, but we put these pedicle screws there. You can't tell from here, but there's 2 screws here, 2 screws here in the rod, and we kind of complete the fusion your body has been trying to do since birth in a way. And again, fusion sounds scary. People don't want to lose range of motion. I hear that, but this is just completing the fusion you already started. And that's another way to do it. And in terms of which way I would pick, a little of it's based on me, the patient, the anatomy, kind of a lot of different factors. So different things to think about. So what's the recovery from this? You know, you're like, oh man, that sounds great. I want to get better. Well, in general, again, it varies person to person. I let you go home that day. You can shower a couple days later. I let you drive 2 to 3 weeks later. Getting back to work. Look, if you have a work from home job, I know a lot of us converted to that during COVID, but 6 weeks later, I have even this LSO, this back brace for the first 6 weeks, kind of protect the muscle, protect the fusion. And we start some physical therapy at 6 weeks. At 3 months, I let you now lift up to 45 pounds, and they take off all restrictions around 6 months. So let's summarize. let's get you better. Look, the first thing we as the spine community needs to do is to prove where is your pain source. Just because you have this radiographic finding on x-ray or CT does not mean it's causing your pain. We need to rule out other causes. We need to use maybe a bone scan. We need to use diagnostic injections to prove this is your pain. And surgery can get better. We can try the non-surgical stuff. I'm a spine surgeon, so I'm a tad biased because I know what works in my hands. Resection sounds good. Not always the best plan, but it might be a good option. And then we have the fusion option, and that could be anterior going through the belly, posterior going through the back. So look, we have a lot of videos, we as in me and myself, on this condition. This is something that is tough from a diagnostic standpoint. I hope this gave you a little guidance, and I hope you check out some of the other videos we have about different conditions and how we can use non-operative strategies to get them better. But if you need surgery, let's do it right the first time, and let's just knock it out of the park. Thanks so much for taking a look.